You're listening to CFRN, the Christian Financial Radio Network.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN Emini Futures Cast. This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things Emini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro. Joining us today, Mr. Michael Borth. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Monday, second day of March 2026. Thanks so much for joining us. Whoever you are, wherever you are, we're just glad to have you right here, right now. I spent a lot of the weekend thinking about what I might say as we begin today's broadcast. And, well, we're all aware of what's happened, what is happening. None of us know what will happen. I do know that God has everything in the palm of his hands, and so I don't have any words that supersede that fact. God's got this, and he's got you, and he's got me. Anyway, we do 2 live broadcasts every trading day. The first broadcast is our live training room. That's reserved for members only and those taking their 1-week free trial. If you have not taken your 1-week free trial, when Michael joins us in about an hour, he'll walk you through step by step how to take the trial. Just a couple steps, take you about 3 minutes. We'll get your indicators up and indicating today. Your trial will officially begin tomorrow and will run all the way through next Monday afternoon. Now, when you take the trial, you are gaining access to the live training room, which runs 2 hours every trading day. But additionally, you're getting access to everything we do the other 22 hours of the day. In fact, we treat you just like you are already a member, a passport holder, for 5 consecutive trading days, so that at the end of the trial, you can make a well-informed, intelligent decision as to whether or not trading is right for you. Now, there is no credit card required. We want you focused on what's being taught, so again, you can make that well-informed decision at the end of your trial. When the live training room ends each day at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, we take a 30-minute break and then come back for this broadcast, the noon broadcast, which is open to the public. Everybody, everywhere on planet Earth with an internet-connected device. There are 2 different ways you can join this afternoon broadcast live. The best way, you only have to do it once. Go to mytradingiq.com. Scroll down the page to where it says Noon Broadcast. Click the link, fill out the 30-second registration form, and you're done. What will happen going forward is every trading day, you'll get an email about an hour before the broadcast starts. In that email, there will be a link, so at 12 noon Eastern, all you have to do is simply click the link in the email and it automatically logs you into our platform. The benefit there is you immediately have access to the question box, so you can ask questions and participate in the discussion. There will be days, of course, when you're out of the office, away from your desktop, but you still want to join live. Some days you'll be busy, so you can't join live, but you want to get caught up later. You can do both of those via our YouTube channel, which is easy to remember. youtube.com/CFRN. That's the Christian Financial Radio Network since 2005. And if you are new to our neck of the woods, it's a great way to get to know who we really are. Thanks to the power of YouTube, you can scroll back 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, even more. Now, obviously, you're not going to watch them all, or you don't need to. But it is a great resource to have at your fingertips because it does allow you to see how we've evolved over all these years, day by day by day. youtube.com/CFRN. Not only do we broadcast live every trading day on our YouTube channel, but we also archive each and every daily broadcast. Currently, there's over 2,900 daily episodes archived for your educational and viewing pleasure. On the left side of the screen is our schedule for each afternoon broadcast. As I mentioned, Michael will join us about 1 p.m. Eastern, top of the hour. He'll give us a recap of everything that happened this morning in the live training room. Then do a little live trading as time and the markets permit. For now, we'll dive into our daily devotional, which is where we start each and every day. The topic we're on right now, and will be on for some days to come: God, where are you? Today's scripture, 1 Samuel 16:7, from the NIV translation. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Again, 1 Samuel 16:7. Have you ever been overlooked, forgotten when important decisions were being made? Well, David, the shepherd boy that became king, he knew that feeling. When the prophet Samuel came to anoint Israel's next king, David wasn't even invited to the ceremony. Samuel arrived at Jesse's house with a divine mission: anoint one of his sons as the future king. Jesse proudly paraded 7 sons before the prophet, all tall, strong, and impressive. Each one looked like king material. Yet God rejected them all, telling Samuel, that scripture we just read, the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So Samuel asked, "Are these all the sons you have?" Almost as an afterthought, Jesse mentioned David, the youngest of his sons, who was out tending sheep. not even considered worthy of the gathering. But when David arrived, still smelling of the pasture, God spoke, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." 1 Samuel 16:12. While his family saw a shepherd boy, God saw a heart after his own heart. David, youngest, smallest, overlooked by his own family, was chosen to lead a nation. The oil was poured, and the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward. Those years, faithfully tending sheep, weren't wasted time. They were preparation. Fighting lions and bears to protect the sheep equipped David to face a giant. We all know his name, Goliath. And we all have our own Goliaths in our life. Learning to trust God in small things prepared him for eventually leading armies. God develops leaders in hidden places before giving them public platforms. Years later, when David wanted to build God a house, God made an astounding promise in 2 Samuel 7:16. God said, "I will build you a house. Your throne will be established forever." This wasn't just about David's immediate descendants. It pointed to the ultimate king, Jesus, who would be called the Son of David throughout the Gospels. God is still looking at hearts today, not appearances. What seems like insignificant preparation in your life may be exactly what God is using to ready you for His purposes. The same God who saw potential in a forgotten shepherd boy sees it in you. The shepherd's staff that guided sheep would become the scepter that ruled nations. God's kingdom often begins in the most unlikely places, with the most unlikely people, including you, including me. So I ask, what is He calling you to today? Let's pray. Heavenly Father, as we just read, you look not at outward appearance, but at the heart. So Father, we ask that you would shape our hearts to be pleasing in your sight and help us see others through your eyes. Teach us to value what truly matters and walk in humility before you. It's in Jesus' name we believe and pray. And everybody said, Amen. All right, let's take a look at the numbers from around the world. You know, if you were there for the Open last night, it was pretty powerful, as one would expect. Okay, starting here in the U.S. with the cash markets, or the indices as they're called. The Dow is down 44 points. NASDAQ is up 81. S&P 500 up 2.25. And the Russell 2000 up 10 points. No movers, no shakers, but when you take into consideration how far down the markets gapped last night at the open at 6 p.m. Eastern. We're actually looking at quite a comeback story. In the commodity basket, crude oil up $3.66, trading 70.70 last. It's a gain of 5.5%. Gold up make that $69.80. That's a gain of well over 1.25%. Silver down $5.47, trading 87.82 last. That's a drop of almost 6%. In the Asian markets at the close, the Nikkei dropped 793 points, over 1.25%. Shanghai gained 19. The Hang Seng fell 570, well over 2%. And in the European markets at the close, FTSE down 130 points, 1.25%. The DAX down 611 points, 2.5%. And the CAC down 186, just shy of 2.25%. So we had a mixed day in Asia. It was a red day for the UK. And at the moment, it's a mixed Radio Monday here in the US of A. But the Dow is the only one in the red, and it's only in the red by 8 points. And for the Dow, that's not a lot. In fact, to get your goal for the day with the Dow, you only need 20 points. So the only one in the red at the moment. Now the others, like the S&P, it's positive by 6. Now that's a huge turnaround because I think the gap lower opened last night. I think Stefan posted was around 56 points. I didn't count them myself, but I certainly trust his math. So when we get to the charts, if you haven't seen the charts yet today, it'll all kind of make a little more sense. So we'll go to the news, and then we'll go to the charts. Well, the man who loved to say death to America and death to Israel won't be saying that anymore. The Iranian supreme leader, the Ayatollah, was killed over the weekend, targeted as part of a wide-ranging surprise attack by the U.S. and Israel across the country. The head of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard was also believed to be killed alongside dozens of other senior leaders. Emini, an 86-year-old hardline cleric, has ruled Iran since 1989, building the country into a regional economic and military power. Despite his age, he had not publicly revealed a succession plan, with the country currently led by an interim 3-person council. Framed as a preemptive strike, more than 1,000 targets have been hit as of this writing. Iranian state media said more than 200 people had been killed, including 165 at a girls' school adjacent to a naval base in the country's south. That's a tragedy. Loss of any life is a tragedy. Like the 40,000 people who were massacred in the streets and in their hospital beds by the Iranian supreme leader. Democrats are going to forget that part pretty quick. So it's the truth. So just remember it in the coming days, because you're going to hear a lot of stuff. The attack followed weeks of talks over Iran's nuclear program and a buildup of U.S. forces in the region. It also coincided with a rare meeting of top officials, including the Ayatollah, in the middle of Tehran in broad daylight. Trump practically, he begged them, please, let's make a deal. If we can't make a deal, this is what's going to happen. They've lied to us for 46 years. Now the Iranian people, while the Iranian people are chanting in the streets, God bless America, God bless President Trump, the Democrats are falling all over themselves to curse America, curse Israel, and curse even God. I want you to think about that. Of course, Iran launched a series of retaliatory strikes across the region yesterday, aimed at various targets in Israel, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, and elsewhere. 3 U.S. service members were killed during operations. The cause was not immediately clear. The conflict comes after widespread anti-government demonstrations by Iranians in December. At least 40,000 civilians were killed, not by Americans, not by Israelis, but by the Ayatollah. Well, he didn't pull the trigger. He just sent his Revolutionary Guard down to do the dirty work. Moving on, a gunman killed at least 2 people and wounded 14 others when he opened fire outside a bar in Austin, Texas early yesterday. The FBI said there were possible indications of terrorism. A motive has not been publicly identified as of this writing. One law enforcement official told the Associated Press the suspect was a 53-year-old naturalized U.S. citizen born in Senegal, wearing a sweatshirt that said "Property of Allah" and a t-shirt with an Iranian flag. Authorities say the shooter drove around the neighborhood multiple times in an SUV before firing out the window at people outside of Buford's Bar on Austin's West 6th Street. He then parked the car nearby and began shooting at pedestrians. Police quickly intervened, killing the suspect. Medics were on the scene within 57 seconds of receiving the first 911 or 911 call at 1:59 a.m. The shooter used 2 weapons, a pistol and a rifle. Pharmaceutical giant Novartis reached a settlement with the estate of Henrietta Lacks last week, offering an undisclosed sum for decades of biomedical research and development based on the HeLa cell line. In 1951, Lacks, then a 31-year-old black woman, was undergoing surgery for cervical cancer at the then segregated Johns Hopkins Hospital when a sample of tumor cells were biopsied without her consent, a common practice at the time. In the lab, the cells continued to grow and divide, doubling in number roughly every 24 hours, and creating the first immortal human cell line. Trillions of HeLa cells have been produced over 7 decades, used in research enabling groundbreaking medical advances, including vaccine development, cancer treatments, in vitro fertilization, AIDS research, and more. Despite her non-consensual contributions to medical science, Lax remained relatively unknown until the 2010 book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, was published. Turning to Wall Street. U.S. stocks tumbled initially, while oil prices surged after military strikes by the U.S. and Israel and Iran were followed by counterattacks, sending a shockwave through global markets. The impact on oil prices and in turn on inflation is front of mind for investors already uneasy about the backdrop for stocks. The S&P 500 closed February in negative territory after renewed volatility in AI and software names rattled the markets. Apple announced today its newest phone, the iPhone 17e, the company's latest entry-level smartphone, along with 2 new iPad Airs, as part of an expected 3-day product release schedule ahead of a planned event happening March 4th. The 17e is Apple's most recent attempt to attract customers looking for a relatively inexpensive iPhone with a starting price of $599. It comes with 256 gigabits of storage. That's $200 less than the base iPhone 17, which retails at $799. It's also a step up in memory from last year's iPhone 16e, which also started at $599, but came with just 128 gigabits of storage. A few trade-offs come with the 17e though. You'll get a smaller 6.1-inch display versus the 6.3-inch panel found on the iPhone 17. And rather than Apple's dynamic island at the top of the screen that houses the phone's front-facing camera and can display information like sports scores and the status of your Uber, the 17e gets the old camera cutout. The iPhone 17e also only has a single rear camera, unlike the iPhone 17, which has 2. Prediction markets have spent the past year courting Wall Street money and Washington legitimacy with an ambitious pitch. Markets that let people bet on real-world events can produce better, faster information than any alternative. That's their argument. This weekend, as U.S. and Israeli bombs fell on Iran and traders rushed to cash in, the war exposed just how morally and legally fraught that proposition can get. The industry has attracted serious money and serious backers. Polymarket, which trades under the symbol POLA.PVT, backed by investors including ICE, the International or Intercontinental Exchange, the parent of the New York Stock Exchange, has been valued at $9 billion and operates offshore, largely outside U.S. regulatory oversight. Halsey Incorporated, which is regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, has been valued at $11 billion and has struck a deal with TradeWeb Markets, Inc. The platforms handle tens of billions in combined volume last year. Both let traders bet on what would happen in Iran, and when the Ayatollah was killed in the strikes Saturday, both drew backlash. On Polymarket, contracts tied to the timing of U.S. strikes had drawn more than $529 million in volume, while blockchain analysts flagged suspicious betting patterns among newly created accounts. It's market tracking as to whether the Ayatollah would no longer be supreme leader resolved to a yes. Kalshi had tried to thread the needle. Its Emini contract, which had attracted more than $50 million in volume, had a carve-out. If he died, positions would resolve at the last traded price before his demise, rather than paying out as a binary win. The platform says it does not offer markets that settle on death, and on regulated U.S. exchanges, contracts tied to war, terrorism, or assassination are widely seen as prohibited. These new betting markets, I just would urge you to exercise some caution. Amazon may be a leader in the artificial intelligence race, but investors are increasingly unwilling to pay up for the cost of maintaining that position. Shares of the e-commerce and cloud computing giant plunged 12% in February, their worst month since December of 2022, as Wall Street takes an increasingly jaundiced view of the company's aggressive AI spending plans. Not only are the capital expenditures eating into Amazon's free cash flow, but market pros are growing impatient about when they'll pay off in dramatic fashion. The stock also was the worst performer of the so-called Magnificent Seven technology behemoths, and among the 40 weakest companies in the S&P 500. Amazon is starting to look like a cautionary tale. Stay tuned. From Reuters, the Paramount, Skydance, Warner Brothers Discovery merger will create a combined entity that would have a net debt of about $79 billion, according to Paramount, ruling out any plan to divest or spin off the cable assets. The companies will fold their streaming services, including Paramount Plus and HBO Max, into a single platform. And your bills are about to go up. They got to serve that debt. The U.S. and Iran ruled out a quick end of the war as a third day of blasts rocked the Middle East from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf, sending global stock and bond markets lower. Qatar shut production of liquefied natural gas from the world's biggest export plant after it was targeted in a military attack, driving European gas prices as much as 50% higher. They're in it now, and they're already taking action. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is briefing congressional leaders today on Iran. The U.S. and Israel, as you know, launched that strike early Saturday morning in Operation Epic Fury, it's called. Trump characterized it as the beginning of major combat operations. The Gang of Eight is composed of the leaders of the Senate and House of Representatives and the two chambers' intelligence communities. Tomorrow, Rubio and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and FBI Director John Ratcliffe and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane will brief the full membership of both chambers of Congress, according to Dylan Johnson, Assistant Secretary of State for Global Public Affairs and Communications for the National Security Council. And last in the news today, Fairfax County, that would be in Virginia, the state, is no longer a district in quiet decline. It is a system in visible retreat. Fairfax schools experienced the largest decline in student enrollment of any district in the state from 2015 to 2025, while neighboring districts such as Loudoun County Public Schools and Arlington Public Schools grew by 8,315 students and 3,400 students respectively. Fairfax schools saw a decrease of almost 7,000 students during the same period. Declining enrollment in Virginia's largest public school district doesn't show signs of slowing. From 2025 to 2030, Weldon Cooper further estimates that the district's student enrollment will decline an additional 6.6%. There's a whole lot to that story, and I really hope you will take the time to look into it and get into the reason why. It's really too much for us to cover in the limited amount of time that we have here today. All right. Last week, Logic 247, which is our 24/7 around-the-clock E-mini alert service, not just E-minis, but also crude gold and silver. Last week was week 395. The final recap for last week, we issued a total of 52 alerts. 8 never triggered. That gave us 44 actionable alerts, of which 5 or 11% would have been stopped out based simply on market structure, the simple process we teach all of our passport holders. But now we're in a new week, week 396. Over the last 396 weeks, we've issued over 21,600 individual handcrafted alerts. And what we've averaged on a weekly basis is 20% or less of the alerts being stopped out, based again on simple market structure, the simple process we teach all of our passport holders. Since the markets opened last night at 6 p.m. Eastern, we issued a total of 12 alerts. When Valerie did the recap this morning at 8 a.m. Eastern, we were still waiting on the outcome of 2. That gave us 10 actionable alerts, of which 1 stopped out, and that put us at 10% so far. But the week is young. Now, the purpose of the logic alerts is to help you learn how to read a chart. Every logic alert has an entry price, long or short, an initial target designed to help you get your goal for the day, in most cases additional targets, and always a final trade to target. The logic alerts can come out anytime around the clock. Futures trade around the clock. We have traders around the globe. Our day session is their night session, and vice versa. Now, 396 weeks is a long time, 7.5 years. We did the math last week, a little over 7.5 years. But quite a few years before Logic 247, we had our original alert service, the concierge trade alerts. Now, they're different in a lot of different ways. But for the purpose of this discussion, I'll just say this. The logic alerts do not come around the clock. They're posted typically as a static report 5 minutes ahead of the Globex open. As you can see, on Thursday, 5:55 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday, 5:55 p.m. Eastern. But because we knew there was the potential, and I put this in the discussion group, we knew there was going to be gaps and a lot of volatility, which there was at the open. I held off until 6:15, 15 minutes after the market opened last night, to publish the CTAs. So what that means is 15 minutes after the Monday session began last night at 6 p.m. Eastern, all of our traders had all of these targets: the S&P 500, the Dow, the Russell, crude oil, the NQ, gold, and silver. So let's go take a look, see at the charts. We'll start where we always do with the bellwether, the S&P 500 Emini futures. So right here, this is where we opened last night. This is where we closed on Friday. This is where we opened last night. We dropped and we hit a low at 67, 68.5. And remember, this was a red candle, but then buyers came in. Now notice where they came in, okay? Just above this previous low right here, okay? And they've now driven us all the way back up past Friday's closing price. So we had this massive gap lower open, and the gap has been filled. Price has run into blue and climbing, which could act as potential resistance because it's directly above price. And then above that, we've got the black step line and the daily BBC, which is at roughly 69.09. Price always reverts to the mean. Doesn't matter what you trade or what strategy you use. That's just a simple fact, kind of like gravity. Price always reverts to the mean. In our case, with our methodology and our strategy, this green line, that's our mean. We call it the BBC. Stands for bull bear cross. When price crosses above the green line, we're bullish and expect higher prices. When we cross below the green line, we're bearish and expect lower prices. Higher prices, lower prices, higher prices. Pretty simple. The fact that we have managed to recover. Now, I hate to say this, but it's a historical fact. War tends to be good for the markets. Like I said, it brings me no joy to say that, but you're looking at it, okay? We had a down day Thursday, red candle. We had a down day Friday. We recovered about half of it. And that's where we closed. But then again, this is where we opened last night. Plummeted. Buyers came in. And institutional traders definitely have their finger on the buy side at the moment. But be careful. We're up against resistance here. We have resistance times 2 right here. And here we have the 38% fib extension, which itself is potential resistance. Okay. Now, All alerts are created on the 30-minute chart. Nothing magic about 30 minutes. It's just the time frame I chose years ago, and I've stayed with it. They say if it's not broke, leave it alone, so I'm good with that. The vertical lines that you see separate today, Monday. Back here's Friday. Here's Thursday. Back here's Wednesday. You know, we could scroll all the way back, but now the horizontal lines are the weekly trading zones. The weekly trading zones are published every Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. Once they're published, they're carved in stone for the entire week. They don't change in any way whatsoever. Now, the weekly trading zones you're looking at are the ones that were published last Monday morning. Why? Well, the new zones aren't published until Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern, so any alerts that go out on Sunday night have to be based on the previous week's zones. Now that the new zones have come out, every alert that goes out for the rest of the week will be based on the new weekly trading zones published this morning. And in fact, on tomorrow's broadcast, you'll see this week's zones on my charts, because any alerts that I issue between now and this time tomorrow will be based on the new zones published this morning. So here's that gap lower open. You just saw it from a daily perspective. Now you're looking at it, and you know what? That chart doesn't quite look right. There we go. I'm probably going to have to do that with each one of the charts. Remember, I showed you on the daily chart that the gap had filled. And it did. So we'll just refresh each chart that we go through. Come on now. Giddy up. Okay. All right. So gap lower open right into a weekly trading zone from last week. 6820/21. Now, when price drops to a zone, we expect support until proven otherwise. Support, support. When price rallies up to a zone, we expect resistance until proven otherwise. So we dropped to the zone last night on the gap open, found support at the zone, didn't quite make it initially all the way to the short target. Buyers came in right here, drove us up to the BBC. That's price reverting to the mean, and the pullback holds more often than it doesn't. Now, eventually it will trade through. That keeps the markets tradable and flexible and all that. But just remember, the pullback holds more often than not, like there and there and there and there and there. So when the market finds support, it's going to go look for resistance. When the market finds resistance, it's going to go look for support. Now you have to scroll left a long way, but using simple market structure, you'll get an idea why buyers came in where they came in. Support drives us up to resistance at the BBC and the weekly trading zone. Only one of three things happens when price encounters a weekly zone. 70% of the time, it's consolidation. 20% of the time, it's rejection. 10% of the time, the slice. That's when a 30-minute candle slices through a zone like it's not even there. In most cases, under normal market conditions, when that happens and the move runs out of steam, price will retrace back to the zone it sliced through and then continue in the direction of the slice. So after hours of consolidation here, remember these are 30-minute candles, we hit the short target multiple times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then right here, here's the Wall Street open. Off we go. And where do we find resistance? At the zone. 68.74/75. Then we get a retracement back to blue and climbing. And that sends us right up to the long target, to the tick. Now, the initial time we hit the long target, as you can see, the long target is simply based off this high right here from Friday. That's simple market structure. We backed up, we hit it again, we backed up. This time we're pushing. Now be careful, because right over here you've got a bearish cross. That's when the red line gets below the green line and leads to an extended move. When that happens, the first time price revisits that area right where the cross took place will almost always be good resistance, at least the first time up. So if you got your sights set on the zone as your target, that's fine. I don't doubt the market's ability to get there. But just keep in mind, you've got this spot right here at about 68.99 or 6,900 potential resistance, at least the first time up. Okay. The Dow, there's the gap lower open. Buyers come in, drive us up, but we don't make it all the way to the BBC. That in and of itself is a sign of weakness. So we drop almost to the zone at 48.130/135. Buyers come in, take us up to the BBC, where we consolidate. And then here's the 9:30 open on Wall Street. And about 11:30 a.m. Eastern, during that 30-minute candle, that's when we hit the zone. Backed up, hit the zone again, backed up, and we're now at the zone. 490.15/490.20. On the Russell. There's the gap lower open. Now remember, these 30-minute candles, it was 15 minutes after the open. Normally it's 5 minutes before the open, but because of the expected gaps and volatility, I waited until this candle was halfway done. This is a 30-minute candle. It was 6:15 when these targets that you see were published for all of our members and trial members. So we hit the short target pretty much to the tick. We spiked it just a little bit. Support sent us to resistance, where we hit the weekly zone to the tick. Resistance sent the market looking for support. So again, we hit the short target. And on the second candle, we trade through it. And then right here, you see how on the way down, the step line and red and falling are running parallel. But right here, things change. When the step line crosses from the left side to the right side of red and falling, we expect price to retrace back to the BBC. Again, if you scroll way left, you'll see the market structure that brought buyers in here. After this consolidation, here's the 9:30 open on Wall Street. We ran right up to the zone, 2617/18. Now, we sliced, and then we pulled back to the zone we sliced through, and then we continued in the direction of the slice all the way up to the long target, which was just based right off these highs right here from Friday. So we hit the short target, we get a retracement, we hit it again, we get another retracement, we hit it again. Now we're above that zone, okay? Now we've got a little bit of a double top going on right here. We need to see this candle close, which it will in 4 minutes. But your next area for potential resistance is right here at the bearish cross. Let's call that 2660. Okay, 2660. Now price may very well make it all the way to the zone, but you should find resistance here at least the first time up. On the NQ, here's the gap lower open. So we got a leg, there's the retracement. Price always reverts to the mean. Resistance sends the market looking for support, and we hit the short target. We consolidate at the short target. We hit the zone that was published last Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. Support will always send the market looking for resistance. Resistance sends us back to support at blue and climbing. Here's the 9:30 open. Takes us all the way through this zone. See how we sliced through? And then on the next candle, we retraced. We had a red candle all the way back to the zone. And then we continued in the direction of the zone. Right here, this candle, as you can see, hit last week's zone to the tick. Then we got a retracement. And then we plowed through that zone the next time. And it took us right up to the long target, which is based off, it's based off this high right here, okay? But that high from Friday, as you can see, was put in right at the bearish cross. See, you had a bearish cross that led to an extended move, and the first time price revisited that area, I would say that's pretty good resistance. So we closed Friday on the NQ, consolidating at the weekly zone. Gap lower open, up to the BBC, down to the zone. And now here we sit, consolidating just above the CTA long target. Next area for potential resistance, right here. Call it 25. Call it 25,095 to be conservative. Actually, no, we need this high. Hang on. What's the high? 25,098. Okay. Now, if we get through this resistance here, right here, if price gets through that resistance, where's the next resistance? It's right here. See how this candle has a wick pointing down and this one has a wick pointing up? You just put your crosshair right between the two. 25,190. That's potential resistance and also potentially a good target, but only after we get a close above this potential resistance right here. Okay. All right. Crude oil. This is where we closed Friday, and this is where we opened last night. Now, Michael should be here. Let me see if he's tried to message me. All right, well, he'll be here in a minute because I don't see any messages from him. Did he text me? Nope. Okay. All right. So, we gapped way up here, ran a little bit higher, and then retraced, but this was the open right here. See, it was green, and then it was red. And it brought us all the way back to last week's highest weekly trading zone, 6940/45. Now, these are the zones that were published a week ago, okay? They got staying power. Support will send the market looking for resistance, okay, which it found in an area that I would not have necessarily looked for resistance, but there it is. You got to trade what's in front of you. Resistance sends the market to support. The pullback held, the pullback held, but then we ran into red and falling, and then red and falling took us below the BBC, and here we are right here. Now the black step line's about to cross red and falling, so look for a potential move back up to the 30-minute BBC. Michael is here now, so he will give us a recap of what happened this morning in the live training room and do some live trading as time and the markets permit. When he's done, I'll be back. We'll finish the recap, and I'll wrap things up with our good word for the day.
Excellent. And just one quick second.
Okay. Everything
All
looks
right,
good.
here I am.
Yep.
Good. All right. Let me bring this over and this over, and here we are. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, the 2nd day of March, 2026. Now, if you have not taken a free trial with us, go here to mytradingiq.com, click on the purple button right there. There's no credit card required. Click on that purple button, and it will bring you to this registration page, where all that we ask for is your name, your email, and your phone number. Down here at the very bottom, you should give us your trading view login ID, or your trading view login ID. Once you give us that, we'll be able to get your indicators indicating on your desktop, so you can follow along with us during your complete 5-day trial. Actually, even during the off hours when we're not in the room in the morning with you, you'll be able to mess around with it. All right. We had not a great start to the month. We're better off at the halfway point today, but I felt like I was a little distracted today. Anyway, today, the 2nd day of March 2026, we're up 98 ticks on the NQ, which was not the high of the day. The high of the day on the NQ was 134. We're up 14 ticks on the Russell, which was not the high of the day. The high of the day on the Russell was 24. We're up 4 ticks on the YM, which was not the high of the day. The high of the day on the YM was 49 ticks. And we're up 1 tick on the ES, which was not the high of the day. The high of the day on the ES was 7 ticks. So none of them were at the high of the day. I ended up with stop outs toward the end of the session. Anyway, this morning it took 5 minutes and a couple of trades to get to our goal for the day. At that point, we're up at $1,250 with 10 contracts on, or $125 with one, and we took a total of 31 trades with 6 stop outs this morning. Now, at the halfway point, we only had 2 stop outs, so we had 4 more stop outs between the halfway point and the end of the session. So we're at 80.65% of our trades are break even or better. That puts us on the month, the first day of the month, 592. And on the year now, we're at 44,845 over 38 trading days, averaging 1,180. I really didn't want that to get below 1,200, but we'll get it back. I'm not worried about it. Following 2420 blueprint, these numbers are off a little bit because it's the first day of the month and I got to fix the spreadsheet. So these numbers are off a little bit, but 4.16 hours for the total. This is wrong. So that's wrong. But the 4.16 hours is correct. So far this year, we've worked 4.16 hours getting our goal for the day. The rest of it I'll have to fix. All right, that's it. So let's get in here and we'll go through the trades that we did take and didn't take, and that's that. It's control and back. Now on the YM and on the Russell, we went to a 19 range today. All right, and it wasn't just because of the stuff that happened over the weekend, because of the war that we are now engaged in. It wasn't because of that. It was because last week the 19 range would have worked out much better, and the 9 range just wasn't working out as well in the first half an hour. So anyway, our first trade on the Russell was a +4, and then we had a big trade right there. We had a 45 tick trade there that got us to 49. Then I didn't write down this one, whatever that was. I didn't write that down, but I did write down the stop out. And the stop out brought us down to 24, and then we stopped out again, and that brought us down to -1. And then we had a +4 that got us to 3, and then we had a +6 that got us to 9, and then we had another stop out somewhere. in here. We had another stop out right there. Not there. It was over here. Right there. We had another stop out right there. And that brought us down to minus 14. Now there was one other trade in there that I forgot to mark. This is right there. I'll just stick with the minus 14 for right now. And we do not have a trade setting up right at the moment. So minus 14 is where we ended up with the Russell. Now the YM, control back. We didn't have a ton of trades this morning, but again, I was distracted. I was helping people do things and trying to get stuff straightened out. Now our very first trade on the YM, we got 7 ticks on that. The reason why it's got the off color blue is because it didn't come out of the oversold right there. The next trade we had on the YM was 4 ticks. It got us to 11. Then we had a nice trade right there. 25 ticks got us up to, I think it was 25. No, it wasn't. It was 20. Got us to 31. Then 4 ticks got us to 35. Then 14 ticks got us to 49. And then we topped out. I don't know why I show it. All right. We actually had better than that on the YM today. Okay, so on the YM, we stopped up from 49, and that brought us down to 24. 24, I don't know. I think I put 4 there instead of 24. So we're actually 20 ticks better. That brought us down to 24, and that's where we ended it on the YM. My rating, I couldn't read it. We almost have a trade here. It's got to give us a down close followed by an up close. Okay. Let me get my DOMs ready to go here because the ES is giving us a little something here too. And let me go fix that in here. On the YM, we had actually 24 ticks. So that's a little better. And we actually were better on the Russell too, probably 10 ticks better on the Russell too, but we'll just stick with that for now. Let's go back in here. The ES is actually got a trade right here. Okay. Now let's blow that up and go back to the beginning. Going back to the beginning, here we are. Okay, so the ES gave us a break even, then another break even, then a +1. Then we had another +1 somewhere right there, another +1. The ES just hasn't been giving anything up today. Then we had another break even, then we had a +2. That got us to 4. Then we had another break even, then we had a +3. That got us to 7. Then we had a stop out somewhere in here. There it was a stop out. That got us to from 7 down to -3. Then our big trade of the day was right here. We got 4 ticks. That got us back to +1. That was the ES the whole day. And if you get right here to the end, this one right here that was just triggering did not go in the direction it should have gone. So that was the ES in the whole day. Now the NQ was pretty good to us today. We only had 1 stop out there, I think, right there. And we had 1 or 2 decent trades in there today. Nothing right at the beginning, though. So yeah, I guess we did. We had that one. That was our first trade of the day, as a matter of fact. That was our very first trade. We got 18 ticks on that. We're so close to getting the goal on that one. Got 18 ticks on the first one. And then the next one, we got 3 more to get us to 21. And then 7 to get us to 28. And then, I'm sorry, it wasn't 7. We went to 38. So 17 to 38. And then 50 to 88. That was a big trade. Where it was, I think that might have been the 50. And we went to 88, and then we went from 88 to 110, then 110 to 124, then 124 to 134, and then we stopped out all the way down to 98. And that, I believe, is where we ended it with the NQ for the morning session. And it does not have a trade right here. It's too low right now to give us a trade right now. Okay, and that was it. So the end of the morning, so we're up to 692 instead of 592. 98 ticks on the NQ, 14 on the Russell, was actually more than that, and 24 on the YM, 1 on the ES, 692 and a half. And took 5 minutes and 2 trades to get to the goal for the day, and we took a total of 31 trades with 6 stop outs this morning. Anyway, 692 on the month, and now we're at $44,945 per contract on the morning. On the year, 38 days, averaging $1,182 per contract per 2-hour trading day. And this stuff is not right yet. The only thing over here that's correct right now is the hourly, I think. The number of hours, 4.16 hours. Okay, I'll fix all that stuff by tomorrow, hopefully. All right, so let's get in here and take some trades if we have to. I should say this again. If you haven't taken the trial, go here to mytradingiq.com and click on the purple button. No credit card required. When you click on that, it's going to bring you to the registration page. Just fill it out. There. So now we have, say, 19 minutes left. Okay, so we'll go all the way down here. Let's add another row on the bottom. Add enough for the rest of the week. There. Okay. Copy. Paste. 56. 32. And I guess be 56. Let me see here. 19 minutes. What's 18 actually? 18 minutes. Okay, let's get in there. We don't have a trade here because it's not in the oversold. We don't have a trade here because it's going in the wrong direction. We don't have a trade here because it's not off the midpoint. So that is the way things are right at the moment. And we did finally fill that gap this morning, all the way up to the gap that I was showing to, the 89 gap. All right. So we're not in the oversold here, and we're not off the mid-band there. So we don't have trades on either one of those. I don't have trades anywhere right at the moment. Just yet. Almost there. Does anybody have any questions about anything? We just don't have any trades right at the moment. Markets have slowed down considerably. More than I was expecting them to at this point. Do you know when we change the new contract? Yeah, I see it, Jeff. Its new contract becomes available on the second Thursday, and we usually start trading it, well, not too long after it becomes available. Okay, it used to be we'd start trading it the day after it becomes available, but lately, the last year or so, it sometimes it's taken a little longer for the volume to switch. Okay, so to answer your question, the first Thursday is the 5th, the second Thursday is the 12th, so Friday the 13th, next Friday, we may be rolling to the new contract, but it might not be until Monday the 16th. And just a reminder, I'm not going to be here on the 16th, 17th, the 18th, the 19th, or the 20th. Okay, that's for the H contract, the indexes, Jeff, stuff on the CME. It becomes available. The new contract becomes available on the second Thursday. And the existing contract doesn't expire until the third Friday. And because it's March, that's going to be a quadruple witching Friday too. That means a bunch of other things expire at the same time on that Friday. Okay.
It's always a little tricky when you've got some people trading one contract and some trading the other when the volume is split, but it only lasts for a day or two.
Yeah. And I'll just answer your question now. The weekly trading zones, whatever the weekly trading zones are, for instance, on that Monday, the day that the new contract becomes available, the zones will stay the same all week. Even if the contract changes during the middle of the week, the zones stay the same. The zones are good from Monday through Friday.
It's the way it's been for over 16 years.
Yes, it has. And they're usually good almost for the next week too.
Yeah, as I was going through the various markets today, last week's zones, which are what all alerts on Sunday night are based on, because the new zones don't come out till Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. It was amazing how, especially with the volatility that we had, how support, resistance, back to support, back to resistance. I mean, it was almost like those zones had been printed this morning, but they were printed last Monday. Important prices, important areas stay the same even when the contract changes.
Yes, indeed.
That doesn't intuitively make sense, but it's what we've learned over 16 years.
Yes.
As of December 14th of last year. Sweet 16.
I was talking to Cliff over the weekend. He hasn't been to the last couple of partners meetings. And we're talking about his pacemaker. And he's got 3 years left in it.
So do they replace the whole unit, or they replace the battery? How does that work?
I don't know how it works, but when he got it, he was still with us when he got it years ago. And they said they're going to put the Cadillac in, and he said, I want the Rolls Royce. I don't want the Cadillac. He hasn't made the last couple of partners meetings.
I'm surprised the technology hasn't evolved to where it has a rechargeable battery, because how with your iPhone now you don't have to plug in a thing to charge it. You can lay it on a charging mat or whatever. I could just see them laying that across someone's chest, for a few hours, and good to go for another year.
You would think.
Well, I'm sure that technology will come at some point. I mean, if it's medically possible. I mean,
yeah, I'm sure they're working on it. Probably find a bunch of chimps doing it, but it's what if it blows up? The battery blows up while you're charging it.
Yeah. There's that. I mean, the whole concept, the whole idea is
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea. I'm sure.
It's mind-blowing, honestly.
It is. All right, so the only thing looking like it might give us a long trade right now is the YM. Everything else is in the red. And everything else just switched to the red. So
What about the Russell?
I think the Russell is what I meant to say. Did I say the
Okay.
yes?
You said YM.
I think I said the wrong thing.
I
No,
think you said
the
YM.
wrong thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I said the wrong thing. I mean, I thought I heard the words coming out, and they weren't the words that I meant to say.
Right. Gotcha.
But anyway, it's the Russell. So what you do with this is you look at the low, it's 50.3, and you put a buy stop 20 ticks above that, just like that. Because it's a 19 range. So 20 ticks above it, buy stop limit order. And the way the markets are right now, I could probably go back down to the 9 range, but I was really expecting more volatility today. I mean, we had it in the beginning a little bit, but I don't know.
I think we may be seeing the calm before the storm. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know. They're saying 49.7, 51.7. As far as this war with Iran goes, I think the main offensive is going to be done in like a week or two, probably.
I would think, yeah. Hopefully the Iranian people will be able to rise up. And my heart just breaks for all those thousands of people. 40,000 they're estimating that were just slaughtered in the streets by the supreme leader. And now those people they're dancing in the streets. God bless America. God bless Israel.
Yeah, but in America, they're not.
No. In America, they've now taken the supreme leader. They've taken the Ayatollah's position, or they've held it for a long time. You know, America bad, Israel bad, conservatism bad.
Yeah. It's, oh well.
You know, if you don't paint your hair pink and cut off some body part, well, hey man, you're just not happening. So
they used, look, read what Ken put in. When he had an MRI last year, they used a strong magnet in the shape of a donut to stop the pacemaker he got a year ago, then restarted it with a magnet after the MRI was in the center. Wow. That is something else.
That's interesting, Ken.
That is something else. So they just stopped your heart.
I'm almost thinking there would be like some kind of a remote device that, I guess they know how to do it. So.
Yeah. All right. The YM just triggered. The Russell just triggered. Sorry. Keep saying the wrong thing. The Russell just triggered. After 10 ticks in profit, it's going to bump to +4. And it just did. We're at +4. You should make it all the way up to 56.3. All the way up through the 30-tick target.
You mean the Russell? You said the YM again.
Yep. I know. I corrected myself, though. I caught myself this time.
All right.
But I did say that. You're right. We do almost have a Russell trade, too, though. An actual Russell trade. Going in the opposite direction. So because of that, I'm going to lock in a couple more ticks on this, and we're out with 6 on the... Did I say it the wrong way? I said it the wrong way again. I said it exactly backwards again. We do almost have a YM trade going in the opposite direction. We got 6 ticks on the Russell. We do almost have a YM trade going in the opposite direction. The CS is nothing here because it didn't make the full cycle there. The NQ is not anything either, and it didn't print that last bar. Okay, there it is. Okay, so we almost have a YM trade, and we got 6 ticks on the Russell. Let's
just do that up close and a down close.
Yep. 6, 1, 0. All right. So get back in here. We're pretty close now. It could actually hit it and still give us a down close on this bar. right now it hasn't hit it yet. And that one is actually the Russell. So how long do pacemakers normally last, Ken? That's something I totally forgot existed until Cliff told me about it. What's their function? Like a little helper, right? For your heart. You have no idea. Yours doesn't have a date on it. All right, so the Russell closed up, not down, so we could have a trade here on a down close. It's got a high of 82, so we'd be selling 62 on that. Like this. Is Jimmy in here? Maybe, probably not. No, he's not. Okay, we almost have a trade here on the ES now too. The Russell's going away. The ES just went away. The Russell, I gotta find that Dom. It's not completely gone yet. Let's put that window on top. And it's now got a high of 94. So it'd be 74 there. Okay, the ES has got no trade. The NQ could have one. Did I call that the Russell again? What is up with me today? The YM now has a high of 02, so you'd be selling 82. And the NQ almost has a trade. The ES has got nothing. The Russell trade would have worked out even better than 6 ticks, as you can see. It's got these numbers down here that I'm interested in. These up here I might be trying to get to. So we'll see. Still got the high there of 2, so 82 is the right place for that. This turned into nothing. This turned into nothing. So it looks like this YM is our only chance at another trade here. And the low of this is 81, so it really can't go any higher like that. That's got a high of 06, it's not going to be a trade. The low would be 86, so that's not going to be a trade. But we might flip a YBR here or something. I doubt it. We only have a minute and a half. That's right. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. About 85, you think? Well, Cliff is going to be 80. So, I don't know how long ago he got his, though.
When my grandfather got his, it was in the 70s. So, I mean, it was relatively new technology at that point.
Yeah, back then they had those big 6-volt batteries. Start them with jumper cables. That was new technology back then.
Yeah.
You know, my brother-in-law Don was on NBC Saturday morning because it's Heart Health Month, and he just had something done. He almost died a few months ago. He had this aortic something or other, but he was feeling a pain in his shoulder. Then it got down to his hand, and then all of a sudden his jaw went numb, and he went in and had it checked out. They almost sent him home, but a nurse sent him in for a CT scan, and they rushed him right to the hospital. If he'd have been another hour longer, he'd have been dead because his aortic wall exploded while he was in the hospital when they had him cut open.
Oh my goodness.
And so they had him on TV on Saturday morning. My sister sent me
he was definitely in the right place at the right time for that kind of an event.
Yeah, let me see. Allison. Allie and Don, here she is. Yeah, I think you can hear it.
And
But
2 daughters after a serious health scare last summer.
For like 3 weeks, I was having shoulder pain. That's it. Never chest pain, just had shoulder pain.
That's-
And it would travel. It would go to like my shoulder, my elbow, and my wrist. And sometimes I get a feel in my neck.
Eventually, Don started getting numbness in his jaw, and that's when he went to the emergency room in Westbrook. His tests were coming back clear, and he was almost sent home, but a nurse decided to do a CAT scan.
And that's when she said, we got to get you to the hospital right away. You know, she was freaked out.
Don was suffering from a dangerous tear in the aorta close to the heart and was rushed to Hartford Hospital.
In Don's case, the tear actually weakened his aorta enough that it ruptured during the operation at kind of the beginning of the operation, which is one of the major risks of this and why it is a surgical emergency. Because if this happened, an hour earlier, we wouldn't be talking to him today.
Once in the operating room, the surgery got a big.
Yes. The surgery got a bit complicated. They had to take a vein out of his leg to rebuild something else that was clogged. Yeah. Before the pacemaker was installed, your heart rate dropped to 26. Yeah, that's pretty low. Again, it's barely pumping there at 26. All right. Well, I guess I'll wrap it up, guys. That was our one trade. So in this session, we are 100% one trade, no stop outs, 18 minutes, 6 ticks on the YM. No, 6 ticks on the Russell. I did it wrong. 6 ticks on the Russell, so $300. So we're still averaging $153 per contract in this session. Our average session is now 13 minutes long. That should have gone up with the 18. Let me just get rid of that and see what happens to that number. Okay, so 56, it goes up, and if I put the 18 in there, it should go up some more. Okay, that number's not right. That is, all right, that number's not right. It should be this number here, it should be updating. And that goes down to 7. All right, that's the problem. 579. There. Okay. So 16.21 minutes is our average session time. That's better. That is correct. 16.21 minutes is the average session time. And I'll fix that. So we're averaging $153 per contract in the 16 minutes that we are averaging to trade in this session. All right, so with that, I can pass it back to fabulous Phoenix, Arizona, in Studio A overlooking South Mall, America's largest city park. Dwayne, if you are ready.
Yeah. Okay, recap of the morning session.
Today it took 5 minutes and 2 trades to get to $1,250 or $125 with one contract.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, we covered the ES, the Dow, the Russell, the NQ, and crude in typical granular fashion. So if you missed any part of today's broadcast, 5 minutes after I sign off, you can go to youtube.com/CFRN and you can watch today's broadcast in its entirety. So again, with crude, we gapped all, this was Friday's close, we capped all the way up here, eked it a little bit higher, and this is all in 30 minutes, and then a huge drop, and then a bounce, and then we found support right at the last week's highest weekly trading zone, 6940/45. So support sends the market looking for resistance. Not an area I would have particularly be looking for resistance, but you got to, trade what's in front of you. Right here at this high, just based on simple market structure, that's where I would have looked for potential resistance. So it overshot it just a little bit. Then the pullback to the BBC held, and it held, and it held. When you got this much red and falling, we know the pullback holds more often than it doesn't, but we know eventually it will trade through. And when you got this much red and falling chasing price, that creates a scenario where there's a greater probability that this time it will trade through as opposed to the pullback just holding. So we consolidated at the BBC, and we dropped to this low right here, which again, I would have not picked up on as a necessarily specific area. I did mention right as Michael was taking over that the black step line was in the process of crossing red and falling, and in doing so we expect a retracement back to the BBC. Price always reverts to the mean, and in our case the mean is this green line here, the BBC. Okay, gold we haven't covered yet. Now, along with crude, gold gapped higher last night off the open, and the first 30-minute candle closed right at the weekly trading zone, 5370/71. Again, that's last week's zone. The new zones did come out this morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern, and on tomorrow's broadcast, you'll see this week's zones on my charts, because any alerts I put out today, now that the new zones have been published, will be based on this week's zones. But every alert that goes out Sunday night, that's always based on the previous week's zones. So we get a retracement. And on that retracement, we don't fill the gap. Buyers come in, take us up to the zone, consolidate for a few hours, and then an hour ahead of the London Open, we hit the long target. This candle right here opened at 54, we'll call it 54.02. That's a $3,200 per contract move just up to the target. Show it to you again. 54.02. No, I'm sorry. 54.02 to 21. That's a $1,900 per contract move. However, it did go all the way up to this high at 34. Okay. So if you go from 02 to 34, then the entire move was $3,200 per contract. But to the target, $1,900. So we hit resistance. Back we go. Price always reverts to the mean. Pullback held. Hit the long target, backed off, hit it again, spiked it, and right here, you can see those three candles right here, okay? We're perfectly aligned with those highs. What we didn't do was take out this high, okay? By just a little bit, but still, we didn't take it out. That in and of itself a sign of weakness, and so here we go. Oh, you know what? I was supposed to refresh every chart. I said that at the beginning of the broadcast. Okay, looks like this one's okay. Yeah, that 9:30 open, it doesn't look right, but it is what it is. So right now we've got the black step line crossing red and falling. Typically, that's going to send price back to the BBC. Then it becomes a matter of, will the pullback hold or not? If the pullback holds, Then we should get another leg to the downside if we trade through the VBC. And you've got potential resistance here at the zone. And then you've got a bearish cross right here at 53.79. Okay, so if we trade through the BBC, first resistance is at the zone, second resistance is at the bearish cross, at least the first time up. Then this area right here, 54.08, and then the long target. And then we got a triple top right here. The high of the session is at 54.34.1. Hold on for me just 1 second. Please forgive me. My apologies. All right, so we got one market left. And we'll refresh this just to make sure it's right, but I'm pretty sure it is. Yep. All right. So here's a close Friday. Gap up on silver. We never made it to the long target. Ran into resistance here. Sent us back to the VBC where we consolidated. And as red and falling turned to blue and climbing, we put in another leg to the upside, but we failed to take out that high right there. So that's a sign of weakness. Then the black step line crosses blue and climbing. And whenever the step line, whether it crosses blue and climbing or red and falling, in most cases, price is going to retrace to the BBC. It did. We consolidated at the BBC for 4 30-minute candles. Had a lot of red and falling chasing price. And down we go. Through the short target. We hit the zone. Caught a bounce. Caught another bounce. Then we came back down through. And the low of the session so far was last week's zone 8678/79. Again, all the zones you're seeing today were last week's zones. On tomorrow's broadcast, you'll see this week's zones. The zones are published Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. Once they're published, they're carved in stone for the entire week. They don't change in any way whatsoever. So we'll take a look here at the ES. Okay, long target. Step lines crossing. Look for retracement. Dow didn't make it the long target. Now we did hit the short target. Consolidated. We haven't been able to get through this zone from last week. The long target is right here at 49,125. But as you can see, the step line has crossed blue and climbing. So now you should expect price to retrace back to the BBC. Now, if the pullback holds, we get another leg to the upside. If the pullback doesn't hold, well, if price trades through the BBC, right here, where you have this bullish cross that led to an extended move, first time price revisits that area, whether it's today, tomorrow, or 6 months from now. Should be good support. First time down. Okay. All right. Now, I don't remember if I refreshed this chart or not, but I'm pretty sure it's right. It was just the ES, the first one. Didn't look right. Sorry guys, hang on. All right, sorry. All right, yeah, as you can see, here we come. Just like we expected. Russell, we'll refresh that one. Okay. We took out this high right here, but we got a doji right at this high. Okay. Step lines crossing. So look for the Russell to start dropping. Could find support at the zone, could find support at the top side of the long target, but in most cases, it's going to come back to the BBC. NQ, refresh that one just to make sure. Yep. Step lines crossing, price finding support at the zone. Okay. Now back on Friday, that was resistance, resistance. You see those wicks sticking up like that? Okay. And this one is right at the bearish cross. See that? Okay. That's really important. But just the wicks alone sticking up, that's a bearish sign. Now, when this was happening, you and I didn't know the strike was coming. Well, I think we all knew it was coming inevitably, just not when. Black step lines crossing blue and climbing. The price has already bounced off the zone once, comes down again and gets through. You should see price hit the BBC. And of course, again, it becomes a question of, does it hold or does it not? Okay. All right. Again, if you missed any part of today's broadcast and you would like to revisit it, just go to youtube.com/CFRN. Okay, one last look at the daily chart. Now, I talked Friday at length about the fact that big picture, if we were to zoom way out, this is starting to look more and more like a transition from this incredible bull market we've had going on for quite some time. Now, this is going to look like a rounding top, not a, V bottoms are more common than V tops. Now, I mentioned earlier that blue and climbing directly above price becomes potential resistance. So we did manage to poke through it. Now we've pulled back. So we go to the 30-minute and we see what's happening. So where should price pull back to? 68.52. And on the daily, that's going to be right in this area here. Okay. If you haven't worked on learning to use multiple time frames, it's an incredibly important part of the whole learning how to trade process. So start using multiple time frames, and then soon you'll be thinking in multiple time frames. Okay, well, we covered a lot today. To become a member, email Valerie, support@cfrn.net. Let her know you want to become a member. She'll send you all the information you need to get signed up. Okay. Let's wrap it up with our good word for the day. Learn to delegate. Exodus 18:18. The Bible says, the people stood around him from morning till evening. Moses' father-in-law replied, what you're doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. You may have noticed on the back of a truck a sign that communicates their load limit. Highways have weigh stations to make sure these trucks aren't carrying too much weight. If a truck with a huge engine has load limits, then it makes sense that we do too. Moses had exceeded his load limit. Eating on the run, running from one end of the camp of Israel to the other, scheduling meetings, hitting deadlines, and seeing everyone who asked was just too much. On the inside, he was dying. He had two options: collapse or share the load. Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, told him to evaluate what only he could do and delegate the rest. Anytime you are staring at a job that looks larger than you can handle alone, understand that God is telling you, don't try it alone. But Jethro didn't tell Moses to ditch the work and throw it on just anybody. That's a formula for disaster. To delegate successfully, you have to do these three things. Number one, get the right people. Number two, give them the right task. And then number three, trust them to do it right. Don't micromanage them. So the good word for you today is do what only you can do, delegate the rest to others, and trust God for success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading E-mini futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.